My name is C. Radhakrishna. I am working as senior lecturer in chemistry at Government Polytechnic College, Gadwal. Today, in the last class, we have completed water technology. Today, let's start electrochemistry. Before going for electrochemistry, we just try to revisit what we have learned in the last class in the water technology. Those topics are also important. In the last class, we have learned about osmosis, reverse osmosis, applications of the reverse osmosis, and desalination by electrodialysis and Nalgonda technique. Almost 5 topics. Let's briefly recollect what that is, as we do in every class, and then we will move on to the our topic electrochemistry. Okay, the meaning. In the last class we discussed osmosis. What is osmosis? The diffusion of solvent from solution of lower concentration to a solution of higher concentration through a semi-permeable membrane until both the concentrations become equal. Okay, or isotonic solutions, they become isotonic. Here there is a diffusion of a solvent through the semi-permeable membrane, not the solute particles, only solvent particles. And it occurs, it's a natural phenomena, it occurs on its own. Okay, and it's a spontaneous process, unlike the processes where we have to use spend energy to bring about a process. This is a spontaneous process, it occurs spontaneously. Examples of this osmosis are, examples are the absorption of water by plants, roots of the plants. The cell sap of root cells is higher at a higher concentration than the water in the surrounding soil. So and also the cell walls of root cells act as a semi-permeable membrane, allowing the flow of water into the cell. Because the cell sap of concentration is higher, the water from the surroundings enter into the roots through the root cells, and from roots various parts of the plant through xylem network. Okay, so absorption of water by plants is an example of osmosis. It occurs quite naturally and spontaneously. Another example is if you put grapes bunch without separating grapes from the bunch itself, if you put in the water for over a night, overnight, and see in the morning, examine the grapes in the morning, all the grapes will be burst. They will be cut on all the grapes are burst. Why it happened? Who have cut that those grapes? What happened is the water from the surrounding entered grapes, because grape juice concentration higher. When you put them into water and left them, and water enters the grape through the skin of the grape, because skin of the grape acts as a semi-permeable membrane, allowing the intake of water, inflow of water. So it keeps on flowing in until at a point the grape cannot withstand and it bursts. Okay, it exceeds the volume of the grape and it bursts. These two are examples of osmosis. Okay, and we have also defined osmotic pressure, the pressure that has to be applied to the solution of higher concentration to prevent the diffusion of solvent from the lower concentration when they are separated by a semi-permeable membrane is called as osmotic pressure. Simply put, it is the amount of pressure you need to apply to the solution of higher concentration to prevent inflow of solution through the semi-permeable membrane. Okay, that is osmotic pressure. Then we will go for the reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis, as the name itself indicates, it is reverse of osmosis. Here the flow of a solvent is from solution of higher concentration to a solution of lower concentration, of course through a semi-permeable membrane, from higher concentration to lower concentration flow of solvent. Okay, we said that we discussed that osmosis is a natural phenomena. It occurs naturally and spontaneously. But what about the reverse osmosis? When one is natural and spontaneous, the other must be artificial. Okay, and it must be forced. You have to spend some energy. It's something like a flow of water. Water flows down the hill on its own due to gravity or whatever it is. It flows down the hill always on its own spontaneously. But if you have to pump water to the hill, onto the top of the hill, you have to spend some energy in the form of electricity or mechanical, whatever it is. Okay, so that is artificial and it is non-spontaneous. Okay, so also the reverse osmosis also not non-spontaneous. So you have to apply a pressure on the uh, more concentrated solution, a pressure higher than the osmotic pressure, to force a solvent from higher solution of higher concentration to solution of lower concentration. Okay, this is called reverse osmosis. Okay, the flow of the flow or diffusion of solvent from a solution of higher concentration to a solution of lower concentration by use of force or pressure is called as reverse osmosis. This also takes place through a semi-permeable membrane, and there are lots of applications of this reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis, you can prepare drinking water, you can concentrate fruit juices. We can it is this technique is used in the dialysis, and it is also used for treatment in the treatment of CAs, for the preparation of protein powders, for preparation of milk powders. For all these things, reverse osmosis can be used. Water can be purified by reverse osmosis. The advantage of reverse osmosis is that okay, it's a physical process. Okay, and only solvent moves across the semi-permeable membrane. This property can be made use to prepare drinking water and desalination of seawater also. Osmosis, reverse osmosis can be used. It is being used widely for desalination of seawater to provide fresh water. And the advantage is since it's being a physical process, you need not add any chemicals to the system, which okay, so that is a big advantage. These are the two advantages of reverse osmosis. Then we have discussed electro desalination by electrodialysis. Okay, see, desalination electrodialysis involves movement of ions towards opposite electrodes by application of electricity, something like something like electrolysis itself. But here these ions move through filters. Okay, filters allow only one type of ions. Okay, we take two electrodes at two ends, in between the electrolyte between the electrodes. Okay, and electrolyte solution between the electrodes, electricity is applied, and filters are placed between the electrodes. Okay, alternately. One filter allows only passage of anions, another filter allows passage of only cations, again the other only anions, again the other only cations. Like that, a series of filters are placed. Okay, for the electrodialysis. Okay, electrodialysis, that is about the electrodialysis. Then then what have we learned? We have learned about the Nalgonda technique. What does Nalgonda technique deal with? See, it's a process of defluoridation, removal of fluoride ions from the water to make it useful for drinking. Okay, it's a NEERI, National Environment Engineering Institute at Nagpur has come out with a very inexpensive method of okay, removing fluorides content from the water. Excess of fluorides, according to WHO recommendations, only drinking water. In drinking water, fluoride content should not exceed 2 parts per million. But in many parts in our own state, especially in Nalgonda district and adjoining Guntur districts also, there are fluorine content is very high. This fluorine causes a disease called fluorosis, where the calcium, the bones and the teeth which contain calcium will be affected, because fluorine has lot of affinity for calcium. It removes calcium from the bones and teeth, so it reacts with the calcium from bones and teeth and removes them, so bones and teeth become weak and it causes fluorosis. Okay, to remove, they have Neary has developed a very inexpensive method whereby we add okay, sodium aluminate to the water and stir it. Then we will add bleaching powder, stir it, then add lime to the water and stir it thoroughly. Okay, when we add these things, the fluoride ions and uh, other suspended particulate matter, okay, they will all, the charge on these particles will be neutralized. They will come and form larger aggregates. This process is called flocculation. Okay, and in this process they form into larger aggregates. Okay, if you leave them undisturbed for a few hours, they will settle down at the bottom, which is called as sedimentation. This water can be filtered and fluorine is removed. It can be used safely. This process can be used at the individual household level or even for the community purposes. Okay, these are the things we have learned in the previous classes. So on the in today's class, let us learn the meaning of electrochemistry and electric current. Okay, meaning of electrochemistry. What does electrochemistry deal with? What electric current constitutes of then let's also learn about conductors, non-conductors, electrolytes and non-electrolytes. Conductors, non-conductors, electrolytes and non-electrolytes. All these things we will try to know about. Okay. By the way, what is electric current? Have you ever thought of? In school physics you must have come across the definition of electric current. Electric current is a free flow of electrons. We call it as a free flow of electrons or even charged bodies. Okay, where do the electrons go? Move? Will they move through road, on the road, or in the air? No, there has to be a conductor. Okay, this movement occurs only in a conductor. The conductor may be metallic or non-metallic. A solution also can also be a conductor. Water is a conductor, good conductor. So electric current is a free flow of electrons or free flow of charged bodies. Electrons themselves are charged bodies. Charged bodies can be electrons or even ions. Okay, so electric current is a flow of free electrons or charged bodies or charged particles through a conducting medium. They have to have a conducting medium through which they will flow. Okay, this flow happens only through a conducting medium. Okay, usually electricity passes from where it is electrons. The movement of electrons occurs in the from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Always electrons move from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Okay, then what is electrochemistry? Electrochemistry deals with the consequences of flow of electricity through a substance. Okay, basically it deals with what happens when electricity passes through a chemical substance or a substance itself. So it is a study of process of interconversion of electrical energy and chemical energy. Yeah, it not only deals with the effects of a flow of electricity through materials, it also deals with the interconversion of electrical energy into chemical energy and vice versa, that is chemical energy into electrical energy. These things also it will deal with. It's quite interesting topic actually. If you pay some attention to it, it's really a quite interesting topic. Okay. quite interesting topic it is. Okay, so it deals with the study of process of flow of electricity through matter as well as interconduction of electric energy, interconduction of electrical energy and chemical energy. Okay, interconnection of electrical energy and chemical energy. Chemical energy can be converted into electrical energy. Electrical energy can be converted into uh, chemical energy. Electrochemistry is useful in the extraction and purification of metals, electroplating. These are applications of the process of electrolysis. Okay, electrolysis is the thing, but okay, we'll come to know. We'll discuss that all that. Okay, all these are applications. Okay, let us proceed further. Uh, we can uh, we can classify substances in nature into two types with reference to whether these substances will conduct electricity or not. Okay, whether the substances will conduct electricity or not through them, whether they conduct electricity through them or not. Okay, these substances can be divided based on the property of conduction, whether they conduct electricity or not. Substances can be divided into two types, conductors and non-conductors or insulators. Substances which allow the passage of electricity, electric current through them are called as conductors. Yeah, all the substances through which electricity can be passed. For example, copper wire or steel wire, a steel rod. Okay, all these are examples of electric conductors because they allow the passage of electricity through them. All metals, examples, all metals are good conductors of electricity. And a non-metal we have, there is a non-metal. This non-metal in the solid state it also conducts. This is the only non-metal. Non-metals are bad conductors or non-conductors of electricity, but there are only one non-metal that is a extremely good conductor of electricity, that is graphite. Have you anywhere come across of graphite? You use many times. You have used graphite. Where have you used this graphite? See, you write with pen as well as in pencil also, right? Okay, in pencil you use to write the tip of the pencil, you usually call it as lead. Okay, but that is not actually lead, that is made up of graphite. It will be soft. Okay, it is graphite. This graphite is a very good conductor of electricity. It is a non-metallic conductor, the only known non-metallic conductor. Okay, and fused salts also conduct electricity. Fused, see, if you heat a substance, a solid substance, to a very high temperature, okay, it starts melting. For example, fused salts, he said. Okay, you take sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is a non-conductor in the solid state. It will be in the solid state. It melts at a very high temperature, above 800 degrees centigrade or so. Okay, if you heat the sodium chloride crystals to a very high temperature, at the melting point, at one temperature, they start melting. This is called as fusion. Okay, this is called as fusion. Okay, when it starts melting, when it in the liquid state, fusion or fused state or liquid state, the ions become free to move from one place to other place. So in the fused salts, the fused salts are conductors because of ionic conduction. So is aqueous solutions of acids, aqueous solutions of bases, aqueous solutions of salts. All the three categories, aqueous solutions of acids, bases and salts, are good conductors because when dissolved in aqueous solutions, all acids will dissociate into constant ions. Likewise, all bases and all salts also decompose into constant ions. So, when there are ions, the ions are present in the solution, freely mobile, they will conduct electricity. Okay. In the case of metals, the conduction is due to, we'll see metallic conduction and electrolytic conduction a little later in the same chapter. We'll come across that. Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, so then we divided substances into two types, conductors and non-conductors. Non-conductors can as well be called as insulators. Okay, insulators are the substances which will not pass electricity through them, which will not allow passage of electricity through them. Okay, those substances are called as insulators. Name some insulators. Plastic is an insulator. Will plastic conduct electricity through it? No, it will never. Okay. Then glass. Glass is also bad conductor or non-conductor. Wood. When it comes to wood, there is a small difference. Dried wood without water, totally dry wood is a bad conductor. It acts as insulator. But wet wood, which has got water content, loss of water content, it acts as a conductor. If you touch a live wire with a wet wooden pole, you will get shock. A dry wood piece will not conduct electricity, so you will not get shock. But wet wood is a conductor, so be careful when you use that. Okay, paper is also example of non-conductors. Okay, non-conductor. Paper itself is made up of wood itself. It's made up of wood itself. It's a non-conductor again. Types of conductors. Okay, depending upon the nature of conductors, conductors can be divided into two types. Okay, two types based on the flow of electrons or charged bodies. We are dividing conductors into two types based on how electricity flows through them. If there are two types of conductors, metallic conductors, which are also called as electronic conductors. Okay, there are two types of conductors, metallic conductors and electrolytic conductors. Okay, metallic conductors are also called as electronic conductors. Here the conduction is by means of electrons. And electrolytic conductors, here the conduction is, they are also called as electrolytes. Okay, we'll see one by one metallic conductors as well as electrolytic conductors. Okay, metallic conductors, these conductors are also called as electronic conductors. They are also called as electronic conductors. Okay, these conductors allow passage of electric current through them. They allow passage of electric current through them by movement of electrons. Okay, so here the passage of electricity is by means of free movement of electrons. Okay, where do the electrons go? From where to where do these electrons go? Move. These electrons always move from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Okay, since here we consider electrons as massless bodies, simple massless bodies. Okay, massless are massless bodies. Only will consider electrons only as unit charges. Okay, the movement of electrons will not constitute any transfer of mass. It's only, we consider it as only movement of charge from one point to another point. So since these metallic conductors involve free movement of electrons, especially from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Okay, these in this metallic conduction there will not be any movement of mass. Okay, the movement of mass doesn't occur since we consider electrons are unit charges. Only we consider as charge is moving but not the mass. Okay, only charge is moving, we consider that charge mass is not moving, we consider that way. Okay, that is how. Okay, that is how here it is only movement of charge and no chemical reactions take place by the passage of electricity through the metallic conductors. No chemical reactions. And if the temperature increases, in the case of metallic conductors, okay, if the temperature increases, the resistance will also increase. The resistance will also increase, and the resistance is defined as inverse of conductivity. So the electric conduction or passage or conduction will decrease. Okay. Examples: all metals, and then only non-metal is graphite. All metals, all metallic alloys also. Examples: metals, metallic alloys, and graphite. So here let's sum up. Let's see what happens in the during metallic conduction. Okay, metallic conductors are those where the conduction is electric conduction is because of free movement of electrons. Okay, first point, that is. Second point, you can say that electrons move from point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Since we consider electrons are unit charges, okay, there is no movement of mass in the metallic conduction. No movement of mass, only charge will move from one place to another. So no movement of mass at all. There will not occur any sort of chemical reactions during metallic conduction. Okay. Prior to conduction and after conduction also the material remains identical and the same. No chemical reactions whatsoever will occur during in the metallic conduction. If the temperature increases in the case of metallic conduction, since the resistance of the conductor increases, okay, the conductivity will decrease with increase in temperature. If temperature increases, the conductivity decreases, and vice versa in the case of metallic conductors. Okay, all these are the points about metallic conduction. Okay, all these are the points about metallic conduction. Next, yeah, he mentioned metallic conduction involves flow of electrons from higher potential to lower potential. No chemical changes occur, no transfer of matter. Decrease in conductivity, temperature is increased because the resistance will increase. Okay, the same thing mentioned. Metallic conduction, you can see a diagram. You have got an anode and a cathode. Okay, and in between, if you place a bulb, the bulb lights up to show the flow of electrons. Okay, that electrons are flowing here. The light it lights up. Next, we'll go for electrolytic conductors or electrolytes. Okay, electrolytic conductors are electrolytes. The conductors which allow the passage of electricity, electric current through them. These are the conductors which allow passage of electric current through them in molten state or fused state or in a solution. Okay, so here electricity is passed through them in the when they are in the molten state. That is, if you heat them to solids to high temperature, okay, they turn into liquid state, that is called as molten state or fused state. In that state they will conduct electricity, or if they are dissolved in aqueous solutions, they are soluble in water, so aqueous solutions also they are good conductors of electricity. So those substances where the which conduct electricity either in the fused state or in solution, okay, they are called as electrolytic conductors or simply electrolytes, or simply put they are also called electrolytes. Okay, the conductivity of electrolytes is because of the movement of ions. Okay, this conductivity occurs due to movement of ions. So whenever an acid or base or a salt are dissolved in water, or when they are heated to high temperature to turn them from solid to liquid state, the ions present in become free and they will be able to move from place to place. Okay, so examples are acids, bases, and aqueous solutions of salts, as well as molten salts or fused salts. They are all examples of conductivity by electrolytic conduction. Okay, these are also called as ionic conductors also. Electrolytes are electrolytic conductors. They are also named as or called as otherwise ionic conductors, also called as ionic conductors. Okay, yeah. The conductivity of electrolytes is due to movement of ions. The conductivity occurs because of movement of ions. Examples: acids, bases, and aqueous solutions of salts. Electrolytic conduction involves the flow of ions towards the oppositely charged electrodes. Here, ions move towards oppositely charged electrodes. Okay, and see, there will be, see, typical electrolytic conduction will have two electrodes, anode and cathode. Anode is positively charged and cathode is negatively charged. When the electricity is passed, the electrodes assume these charges. So in the solution you have, for example, you take sodium chloride, you have sodium ions as well as negatively charged chloride ions. So chloride ions move towards the positively charged anode, while positively charged sodium ions move towards the negatively charged cathode. Okay, so the ions flow towards oppositely charged electrodes. Okay, and electrolytic conduction involves chemical reactions. There is chemical decomposition of the electrolyte which is dissolved in the water aqueous solution. The electrolyte decomposes into constituent elements. So it's a chemical reaction. Okay, so chemical reactions take place in the electrolytic conduction. There is, since ions move towards oppositely charged electrodes, there is a movement of mass. Okay, the whole ion, the whole atom almost, okay, move towards from one place to another. So there is a movement of mass occurs, movement of matter. The conductivity will increase because it is a chemical reaction. Most of the chemical reactions, the rate of chemical reaction increases with increasing temperature. This is also this electrolyte conduction or decomposition of electrolyte which happens. It is also a chemical reaction. Okay, so if temperature increased, okay, the rate of reaction, that is conductivity, will increase. Okay, this is about the electrolytic conduction. Simply put, the electrolytic conduction is because of movement of ions. Where do they move? These ions move towards opposite charged electrodes. Okay, there is chemical decomposition of the electrolyte, so chemical reactions are also taking place. Since ions move towards oppositely charged electrodes, there is movement of mass. Okay, it being a chemical reaction, most of the chemical reactions positively correlated with the temperature rate of reaction. So here the rate of reaction increases with increase in the temperature. Okay, this is about electrolytic conduction. The diagram for the electrolytic conduction, you can see the migration of ions towards opposite charge electrodes. Okay, you can see migration of ions towards opposite charge electrodes. These electrodes are actually connected to an external EMF like battery, okay, which supplies power. So chemical reactions are taking place once you switch on the power. Okay, once you conduct electricity. So here you can say that electrical energy is being converted into chemical energy. Obviously, we are using that electrical energy to polarize the electrodes. Only when the electrodes are polarized, the decomposition of electrolyte is taking place, and so chemical reactions are taking place. It's quite obvious. Okay, it's quite obvious. So this is about electrolytic conduction. Okay. Then let us move to the types of electrodes. Before moving to the types of electrodes, let us see the difference between electrolytic conduction and metallic conduction and electrolytic conduction. Okay, in metallic conduction, the flow of electricity is by movement of electrons. In the electrolytic, by movement of ions. Here, electrons move towards from higher potential to lower potential. In the electrolytic, ions move towards opposite charge electrodes. Okay. In the metallic conduction, there is no movement of mass. In the electrolytic, there is movement of mass. Okay. And in the metallic conduction, no chemical changes will occur. In the electrolytic conduction, chemical changes are taking place. Metallic conduction decreases with increasing electricity, increasing temperature, whereas in the case of electrolyte conduction, the conductivity increases with increasing temperature. Okay, these in the metallic conduction, examples of metallic conduction are all metals, all alloys, and graphite. Whereas in the case of electrolytes, electrolyte conduction, aqueous solutions of all acids, bases, and salts. These are the differences between the metallic and electrolyte conduction. It's one of the pet questions of the examiners, most commonly asked for start notes. Okay. Now we'll move on to types of electrolytes. Say when we have discussed electrolytic conduction, we have defined what an electrolyte is. Again, let us see it once again. Okay. An electrolyte is a substance that conducts electricity only in the fused state, that is in the liquid state, or in solution. Because in these two states, ions are freely mobile, or they become free to move from one place to another place. Okay. So an electrolyte is a substance that conducts electricity in the fused state or in solution. Examples, it is also called as ionic conduction also. Ionic substances. Electrolyte is also called as ionic substances. Okay. All acids, all bases, and all salts are examples of electrolytes. Okay. In the aqueous solutions or in the fused state, ions become free for all of them, and they become good conductors of electricity. Okay. These electrolytes can be divided into two types on the basis of extent of their dissociation and furnishing of ions. Okay, on the basis of extent of dissociation and furnishing of ions, they can be divided into two types: strong electrolytes and weak electrolytes. Okay, strong electrolytes ionize almost completely, even at moderate temperatures, and furnish a large number of ions. Okay, so the definition is the electrolytes which ionize almost completely at moderate concentrations. Moderate is neither too high nor too low, but it is in between, medium. Okay, a moderate concentration is a medium concentration. Okay, so the substances which ionize almost completely and furnish large number of ions, even at medium concentrations or moderate concentrations, are called as strong electrolytes, because conductivity is very high for the strong electrolytes. Okay, let us see the examples for strong electrolytes. Strong acids like hydrochloric acid, H2SO4, HNO3. These are all strong acids. They ionize almost completely when they are dissolved in water, put in water. They dissociate almost completely. Okay. Then strong bases. Strong bases like NaOH, KOH, BaOH taken twice, barium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, barium hydroxide, etc. All soluble salts like potassium chloride, NaCl, copper sulfate, CaSO4, all these are also strong electrolytes, examples of strong electrolytes. All these substances, when put in water, ionize completely, almost completely, to give rise to large number of ions, or highest number of ions. Okay. Next we will move on to the weak electrolytes. Weak electrolytes are those substances which ionize only partially. Partially means if strong electrolytes undergo 100% dissociation or ionization into ions, whereas weak electrolytes undergo either 50% or even less into ions. The rest of them will remain in the compound state itself. Okay, combined state itself. So weak electrolytes are those which ionize only partially or incompletely at moderate concentrations. They are called as weak electrolytes, because ions formed are lesser. Okay, ions formed are lesser. The conductivity of a weak electrolyte is low. Conductivity is low for the weak electrolytes. Examples are weak acids like CH3COOH, H2CO3, acetic acid and carbonic acid. Weak bases like ammonium hydroxide NH4OH, calcium hydroxide CaOH taken twice, aluminum hydroxide AlOH taken thrice. All these acids, the bases are examples of weak electrolytes. Less soluble salts, salts which are less soluble or sparingly soluble. Barium sulfate, mercury chloride HgCl2, silver chloride AgCl. They are all examples of weak electrolytes. These substances undergo only incomplete ionization, that is 40%, 50%, something like that, and furnish when the ionization is incomplete. The number of ions furnished is also incomplete. Very fewer number of ions will be present in the solution. So the conductivity will also be poor here for these solutions. Non-electrolytes. Non-electrolytes are the substances which will not allow passage of electricity through them. Okay, either in the fused state or in solution. Non-electrolytes will not conduct electricity either in the fused state or in the solution also. They are called as non-electrolytes. Examples are urea solution, okay, glucose solution, sugar solution, etc. Okay. Summary: we have discussed electric current, electrochemistry, conductors, and the types of conductors. Two types of conductors. What are they? Metallic conductors or electronic conductors, and electrolytic conductors are ionic conductors. Okay. Then we have defined what electrolyte is. It's a substance, okay, which conducts electricity either in the fused state or when dissolved in the solution, aqueous solution. Okay. So we also divided electrolytes into two types based on the degree of ionization when dissolved in water. They are strong electrolytes which dissociate almost completely at moderate concentrations, and weak electrolytes which dissociate only incompletely or undergo partial ionization at moderate concentrations. We have seen the examples for strong and weak electrolytes. Okay. And non-electrolytes, these are the substances which will not conduct electricity either in the fused state or in the solution. Sugar solution, urea solution, etc. we have seen. Insulators are non-conductors. Okay, these are all the things we have learned in this class, and let us substantiate our learning, okay, improve our learning by solving a few questions. Which of the following is a metallic conductor? Wood, paper, aluminium, plastic. Obviously aluminium is the only metal present here, and obviously C is the answer. That is a metallic conductor. A strong electrolyte is, which of the following is a strong electrolyte? HCl solution, CH3COH, acetic acid, water, glucose solution. Okay, acetic acid is a weak solution, weak electrolyte. Pure water is a non-electrolyte, behaves as a non-electrolyte. Glucose solution is also a non-electrolyte. Only HCl is a strong electrolyte. So strong electrolyte is answer A, HCl solution. Obviously, which of the following is a weak electrolyte? Weak electrolyte is acetic acid, sodium chloride solution, sulfuric acid, NaOH solution. NaCl solution is a strong acid, strong salt. Okay, it dissociates completely. Sulfuric acid is strong acid, strong electrolyte, dissociates completely. NaOH is also a strong electrolyte, dissociates completely, strong base. And acetic acid is a weak electrolyte, weak acid and weak electrolyte, which ionizes only incompletely. So answer is A. Okay. Then electrolytic conduction involves no chemical change, migration of ions, mobility of electrons, none of the above. Electrolytic conduction involves it is due to movement of ions or migration of ions from one place towards oppositely charged electrodes. So obviously the answer is B. Okay, mobility of electrons is for metallic conductors or electronic conductors, they are also called as. Okay, frequently asked questions from these topics are: what are the differences between electrolytic conductors and metallic conductors? Define strong and weak electrolytes. Give two examples for each. Okay, these are very simple questions. Okay, you can easily